Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Heck, your most authentic voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, make billions of dollars, meet the person of your dreams. We're not quite guaranteeing those last two yet. We're working on all the other stuff. I feel quite good that we can deliver for you. And we're grateful, as always, that you keep watching, listening, sharing, talking it up. One of the reasons I feel so confident in regards to what we get to do in relation to building your own arc to authenticity is I get to bring people on who walk the walk. Today is 100% no exception. I get to introduce, for me and my audience, Beate Chelette, renowned coach, author, business strategist. I love the combination, we'll get to it, of strategy and spirituality. The author of the book, Happy Woman, Happy World. And Beate, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John, for having me. I'm looking forward to really diving into helping your audience talk about what's going on, resilience and overcoming and getting your act together and being positive and marching on.
Honest to God, I feel like timing is everything. And I try to make this podcast something that is timeless to a certain extent, but there are certain circumstances that come up. And I feel like in this day and age right now, a little bit of walking through hurdles isn't a bad thing. Right off the bat, I do want to talk about the first thing that got my attention. We're lucky because we're both part of the podcast network that I promote a lot. And I've gotten to meet really good people as a result of this. And the very first thing that got my attention, it's almost the first line in Beate's bio, is talking about coming out of a debt situation in terms of building a business. And it personally resonated to me without sharing too much more, but it really did. So how did you get the guts to formulate this business in the first place, that specific business? What was it that told you had to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I've done multiple businesses. So this particular iteration right now of the growth architect and being a business consultant was born out of really after I sold my business. I was in the photography business. I'm a trained, journalist, photographer. So I come from the media industry, and I've always been really interested in photography until, unfortunately, eventually became a commodity.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate, lucky, determined, resilient, not giver upper to fight myself through a decade of bad luck and just horrible things that happened to me, fire, floods, riots, earthquakes, and a tsunami that took away one of my key vendors. And in September 11th, they wiped out my production business in a day. And I had this lawsuit of my employee who had come up with an idea on how to run a business, which was my business without me. Next thing I know, invoices are being paid to them that I've written. So I've been through my fair share. And eventually, what you alluded to, the first sentence in my bio is that, I was $135,000 in debt. And eventually cracked the code and then sold my business to Bill Gates for millions of dollars. And that's what happened, is that I was so behind and I was so deep in debt, and I was a single mom, and I'm in Los Angeles and my family's in Germany. And it just kept coming and coming and coming. And then when my ship came in, it was a big ship. It was a luxury liner. It was it was at this point when people say, well, is it worth all of that when you then one day become a multimillionaire? Well, yeah, of course, retroactively looking. But the problem is when you're in it, you don't know that. And again, once again in my life, as we've talked in the green room before we hit the recording button, I'm again in a situation like this, which is probably the largest crisis of my life right now that I'm fighting myself my way out of it.
You okay if I ask what that is?
Yes, so we went to Costa Rica, my now husband and I, on January 3rd. We got married in a beautiful ceremony in a spiritual retreat. On the 6th, we hear that there is the winds are coming. On the 7th, there's a fire. At the 7th of January at night, my office building burned down with my podcast studio, and then on the 8th in the morning, our home burned down, and our neighborhood, and our street, our community, the churches, the schools, the coffee shop, the business district, everything's gone.
Life as you know it, for the most part. I mean, obviously you travel, but life as you know it just disappears. What was it like in being in Costa Rica? I'm amazed at at the strength that you convey, even saying that out loud. So that, not to get morbid, but you're at one of the happier times of your life. And so I've never been married, so that's why I say happier, not happiest. So I would just make an assumption that it is. I've seen enough
I mean,
videos.
we've been together for 10 years, John.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not
So
exactly like
well, I
my
can't
husband's a
assume,
fast-moving guy, if you know what
right?
I'm
But you're there, and Costa
Oh
Rica's
my God, we have this great
great, and
ceremony
the ceremony's gorgeous, and the
and
place is
all the
gorgeous.
healers and all these conscious leaders that came together
Hmm.
from all over the world, and it is absolutely beautiful. And
Hmm.
then we are wrapping up. We got married on the last day of, sort of the ceremonial aspect, and then we
Right.
had three more days. And then as we sort of leaving, we're finding out this is happening.
Hmm.
And it was a feeling of disbelief, really,
Yeah.
in the beginning, because
Yeah.
when our neighbor called us then on the 8th in the morning
Mhm.
at 6 o'clock, and he says, "It's gone." We're like, "What do you mean?" The fire cannot jump over Sunset Boulevard because that's the fire line. And he says, "Well, but there were no firefighters. There was no fire truck. There was nothing." And we're like, "What do you mean there were no fire trucks?" "Well, there was no water." It's like, "What do you mean there was no water?"
Mhm.
"Well, the reservoir was empty." "Yeah, but we have the planes." "Well, some idiot flew a drone and punctured one of the plane's wings. So there's only two water planes that can
Mhm.
pick up the water from the ocean." And some, bozo had heard the plane, and then the winds were 90 miles per hour.
Mhm.
It's like literally a fire tornado if you've ever seen one, if you see the pictures. And he says, "Well, there was literally nothing anybody could have done." It's like, "What do you mean it's gone?" He's like, "Well, I can't get to it, but my house burned down and the house across the street is still burning. And Mark, which is the house directly next to ours,
Right.
he says, well, that's burning. So chances are your house is also currently burning or just burned to the ground. And you're trying to get information
Mhm.
because you don't know. And then it's confirmed. On the next day, another neighbor was able to get in and sends us these images of Armageddon, and our house is just, there's nothing there. There's no structure. There's just a hole. And the cars, everything's still smoking. And so you feel you y- in mindset work, we know that our brain
Mhm.
is trying to find something to compare something to make sense of it.
Right.
So if you on your in your first break, they always say the first cut's the deepest, the first breakup is the worst because your brain cannot relate it to any other experience you've had. But once you've been through a couple breakups, you go, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be really upset. I might be really angry. I may gain 5 pounds. I may lose 5 pounds. Um, you kind of know the cadence of this, and then you move through it. But on something like this, there's nothing to compare it to. So your brain is in overdrive because it
Right.
constantly is trying to find out what the heck just happened
Hmm.
and what do I do? And you see these images, and we in Costa Rica, so we don't have access to, the typical stations here in Los
Right.
Angeles. And so I can only go on places like X,
Hmm.
and X is vile. And so
It is.
now you see some of these clips because it's the
Mhm,
fastest moving news service, really.
mhm,
But then you read, well, let all the idiot liberals and
mhm,
democratic leaning people,
mhm,
let
mhm.
them just
Burn.
burn.
Let them burn.
Let them burn.
Mhm,
And you go, what?
mhm.
Um, so you have to be very careful with how much you are allowing yourself to be exposed to, because in addition to what you're going through and you facing that you just lost everything, and at the time I didn't know that I lost the office, but then I find out that that all of that has burned down to that the whole street's gone, and it
Right.
was like a Jamie Lee Curtis uh, video because she's also Palisadian.
Oh
We have a
yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
yeah, we have a lot of celebrities in the Palisades,
Sure.
and she's driving around with her phone, and she's going down the street that's where the business district is, and there's supposed to be the office building, and there is no building.
And there's nothing.
There's nothing. There's like nothing, and so you are now in this. If I go back,
Hmm.
I have nothing to go back to. So
Right.
I may as well stay here
Hmm.
and at least try to figure out where do I live, where do I land.
Hmm.
We have a suitcase full of ceremonial retreat clothes, so white flowy things and sandals and a couple shorts and bikinis, which are not very helpful in the aftermath of an apocalypse. And our entire community activated in a way that was so moving and so powerful and so supportive that it took our breath away. So we had a friend,
Hmm.
Alvaro, who says, I'm in Paris right now, go to my place. And so we were able to
Okay.
go to his
Mhm.
place.
Okay.
My husband's kids, my daughter, all stepped into action. It's
Mhm.
like, what do you need? We arrived on the 11th at midnight, and then they already had set up apartments for us to look at because they're like, we're not leaving until you are in a place. But we are so confused, right? We want to
Mhm.
go there and see it, and we're not allowed to go in. And so we are staying in the space, and then we're just numb. And so they helped us find a place. So we were able to sign a lease within 24 hours after we landed, which was a very smart thing by our children to organize.
Wow.
And that's how the whole journey starts.
And that's so the begin again, so to speak, which is you said something, and I was thinking about it on a lighter way, which I know sounds weird based on what you just said, but when you talked about mindset and not having reference points, and to me, I just I couldn't process. I'm when I said on a lighter note what I remember the first time I traveled to Europe and I was in Italy, and I still remember this feeling, in a positive way, where I had no reference point to what I was seeing. Like it wasn't like you go to LA as you talked about, and it's New York with a beach, or that it's Chicago's this, but it's cold or that. It was all to me that sense of you have to connect to something to make it process. So I remember in this glorious sense that I had never seen anything like going through Florence, Italy. So that was the positive side. Never and never since. So any subsequent time that I went to Europe, I had a reference point. So you go to X or Portugal and it's like this, but that you had people jump in so that you didn't have to answer the questions, at least immediately. Where immediately do I go? And why am I even going there? And so thankfully, you just answered a key question for me. What do you do? Like literally, what do you do? And it was people jumped in and helped make a couple of decisions easier for you.
Yeah.
So,
You need to think about this from the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You
okay,
are
got it.
suddenly, so we are in our spiritual development, which is
Hmm.
very high in
Oh
the
my God,
hierarchy,
right? You're like from here to that,
and
right?
we're just crashing down to the bottom: food, shelter, safety.
Yet I'd never heard that described so well. They did in terms of the hierarchy of needs. Wow.
Yes. So we literally plummeted through the center
Hmm.
of the hierarchy back to the absolute basics. Where do I sleep? What do I eat? What do
Hmm.
I wear? Is it
Hmm.
safe? And you can't really feel safe unless you are in a place that's yours or that you have some sort of control over.
Hmm.
And once we had this place, and the interesting part about this is, so we are in the spiritual retreat, right? So we're here to
Yeah.
develop this connection to the divine and to use this to connect with each other and
Hmm.
other people.
Hmm.
And interestingly enough, John, I feel like I've been in flow ever since.
Oh,
Because
wow. Okay.
because because what happened is I come back and Gary and I, we've been together for 10 years.
Hmm.
We moved in together over 3 years ago. And I have myself a home that I rented, and then I couldn't move all of my things in his house because he had a fully furnished house.
Oh,
So I built
right.
a
Okay. Yeah.
so we built a storage unit.
Hmm.
And we had to put a lot of the things that I couldn't sell quickly enough in the storage unit.
Hmm.
Well, that's our furniture now. So we do have a couch and we do have a bed and a TV and a dining table and some chairs. So I said we went very quickly to dorm.
Hmm.
We are at Airbnb currently and on our way to our home.
Yeah, I think to me now I understand. I like the symmetry of the way that you're describing it. You bring up spirituality a lot. You've talked about it in regards to also setting up business models. Were you always spiritual? Is that something that evolved with you, or is that something that you always had access to in terms of being able to navigate it into key areas of your life and the lives that you are impacting?
I don't think anybody ever been asked me that, which is so interesting because my own show is
Hmm.
about spirituality and
Right.
strategy, right?
Hmm.
You'd think people ask me this, but they don't.
Hmm.
So good extra points for a smart question here.
Thank you.
So I always had that. I just didn't really know what it was
Okay.
because it to me it feels very like a very strong intuition and just a knowing.
Hmm.
And I made the mistake a couple times actually, where I thought that once you develop it, then you got it, and then that's it. And you don't need to do any further work, and then you do something else. And that just does not work. As spirituality or your personal development, self-growth,
Yep.
self-development is an ongoing, lifelong affair and an ongoing ministry if you still want to. And I want to be clear, spirituality is not necessarily in the context of religion or a
Sorry.
particular,
I didn't mean to do that.
kind of God with a
Yeah.
white beard and he's
And
not
rules and regs.
white, brown, green or any of this. Neither is he specifically a man.
Hmm.
But I'm talking about um, an elevated idea of spirituality that we're all connected. There's that everything really is energy. Science does confirm a lot of the spiritual teachings that when you really look at the cells, you see that nothing really ever touches. It has just the appearance of things being in a form, but no cell ever really touches. It just has this appearance, which is mind blowing by itself. And the deeper you go into understanding science and religions and
Hmm.
spirituality, the more you realize it's all connected. And there are some old teaching. Right now I'm reading about Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius
Hmm.
about understanding that these teachings have been around for a very, very, very long time,
Hmm.
hundreds and thousands of years. And we just keep forgetting it because there's so much around us that's a power grab where people try to manipulate the information
Hmm.
and then tell other people, don't do the work, don't do the self-development, just listen to me and I'll tell you what it is, but what they're telling you is really a lie.
Their
And
version of what makes them happy.
their version
Hmm.
exactly of what
I
makes
have become somewhat more spiritual. I always, not always, I was raised Catholic, and I remember pushing back
Oh, me
against
too.
that in
Yeah,
my
same
adults,
here.
right? And it was like, so when I heard that, especially even reading like your bio and going through your profiles and stuff, that it was like I see spirituality. That's why I laughingly was like, shh, only in the sense that it's like I I still have at times a difficult time separating the two, meaning the hundreds and thousands of years of teachings as opposed to someone's version of telling you what to do. And I'm really grateful when I hear someone explain it to me, even as quickly as you did, that simple reminder, because I wondered, and I'd love to hear, how are you able to navigate the two in business?
I think that the most powerful people in
Mhm.
business that I personally admire
Right?
somehow are able to connect both. When you really
Mhm.
listen to like a Tony Robbins, who
Mhm.
is in anybody's book a very successful businessman,
Correct.
or you listen to some of, whatever, Simon Sinek, or
Mhm.
some people that are teachers of our time.
Mhm.
And they all kind of say the same thing, and they all have some sort of a spiritual practice.
Right.
So they either meditate
Mhm.
or they are going to the same ideas around mindset.
Mhm.
They are
Yep.
going to, it's all about controlling what you really believe in. They
Mhm.
understand that you're, I disagree with the notion of the ego because I don't think God makes mistakes. So I don't believe in the vicious, evil ego. I
Mhm.
believe that there is a part of ours that is just programmed in a particular way that reverts to a particular behavior pattern, and that we are here to learn on how to control these behavior patterns in order to be successful. So what happens and how spirituality and strategy really connects is
Mhm.
if you
Yes.
do not develop your spirituality
Mhm.
alongside your strategy, you will operate on a data set that's flawed
Hmm.
because the data set you're operating on is based upon what you believe is true.
Mhm.
But what you believe is true is not necessarily something that you came to understand is true, but something
Mhm.
that you were told it was true, and then it's a belief system you just took on.
I
So,
agreed with it, so I go with it.
right, I agree
Okay.
with it. That's what my parents said,
Mhm.
and my,
Mhm.
these are things that people commonly want. That is true. That appears to be true. People say it's true, therefore it must be true.
Right.
My mind has a recognition pattern, so every time I see that,
Mhm.
that's done. Everybody with a beard is a nice guy because my dad had a beard and he was a nice guy, so I automatic like all men with beards
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it reminds me of my dad.
Mhm.
When we really look into these behavior patterns, we
Right.
know it's a bunch of BS, really.
Yeah.
Because how do you know that all men with beard are nice
Mm.
men? There's mass murderers have
It would seem pretty easy to disprove.
it would be very easy to disprove. So the spirituality aspect comes into saying, if I get very clear about who I am and I connect my desire on what am I here to do,
Mhm.
making an impact, helping other people, taking complex processes and putting them into easy to understand steps,
Mhm.
helping more people to run conscious businesses
Mhm.
and stay in conscious leadership. If I connect the spiritual, right, the purpose
Yes.
directly in the heart, and then
Mhm.
every action that I take comes from this passion and
Mhm.
that connection that purpose that drives me, and I can differentiate what's true and what's not true, and I can influence the outcome by understanding how mindset and visualization and mind control works in achieving stuff. That's how it connects together. It's a
Wow.
shortcut to success by utilizing methods that have been around for thousands of years.
So I love that it's a shortcut to success. I just, to me, that just feels so, I don't know, hopeful. In the sense, in this
It
regard,
exists.
it exists. It's actually possible. So to me, when I speak with my audience, and the reason I select specific people is simply in that regard of the possibilities, because so many people have taken on new businesses, have become entrepreneurs, whether they've wanted to or not, whether it was out of necessity that they've needed to be based on age, experience, whatever, or it's a dream that it has felt unfulfilled. And now you're like, all right, that was great. And what exactly? So I'm going to ask you a terribly selfish question, even based on your current circumstances. You identified the spirituality, the shortcut to success. You identified in your own recovery, personal recovery, so to speak, present tense, how you've gone in terms of this shortcut, your path with the furniture and all that sort of thing. Somebody's trying to build a business and they've got all these external things that are going on, whether they are directly impacted or not.
Mhm.
How do you help people, based on your own expertise and life experience, help people to take whatever those steps are to move and not give up?
Yes. So there's, part of the spiritual journey, and one of the reasons I went
Hmm.
was because I turned 60, so I'm right there in this
Hmm.
am I relevant? Will anybody listen to a woman?
Or
Right?
man.
Is there am I still in a somewhat useful
Hmm.
environment? What
Hmm.
do I have to give?
Hmm.
Am I less valuable than somebody who is 35 and cuter?
Right. Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
certainly can't use the cute factor anymore.
Right.
But what happened in this particular journey, and this is, I think, really important for your audience to listen to.
Please.
And I'm going to wrap it in a story so you
Hmm.
really can feel what happened.
Hmm.
So when my husband and I went, we are around people that are all 35, maybe
Hmm.
a little younger, maybe a little older, but I want to say somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And they're many of them looking for love and looking for the right partner. And here we are, we are very close, and we're about to get married. And then what happens is they started calling us mom and dad. And at first we go, we're too young to be, no, our kids are your age. You could be our children.
Right.
And what happened is that in this journey, and this was literally just at the first week of January,
Right.
is that that this shift of stepping into wisdom
Hmm.
occurred. And I think when you make this conscious choice and you
Hmm.
say, I am not trying to be relevant, I am stepping into a different aspect of the journey that I'm already on.
Hmm.
I'm not here to try to tell you what is your next big thing. I'm here to give you my experience to make your next best thing happen in
Hmm.
the shortest amount of time based on the experience I can give you.
Hmm.
That's the shift.
Hmm.
And when I think in those of us who are older or are stepping into
Yeah.
wisdom,
Yeah.
and for me, this was such a profound experience because I literally, spirituality, I heard the voice that says, you're stepping into wisdom.
Hmm.
You need to now make a decision. Where do you participate?
Hmm.
Where do you facilitate?
Uh-huh.
Where do you observe?
Right.
And where do you simply enjoy others?
Wow.
And I was like, that's pretty profound.
Hmm.
And then the second piece that I was told in this journey is that what's changing now, and this goes right into the question that you asked, and you asked this picking up the energy without even knowing, or maybe you
Right.
did know you were picking it up.
Hmm.
But the download is that I am now asked to take everything I've ever created,
Hmm.
all my formulas and my workbooks and my all these shortcuts that I've created in my German strategy ways over the last 20 years, and I'm supposed to give it to everybody.
Mm.
So not just will I show you and how you can make your own business happen, but I'm going to teach you how to work with clients
Hmm.
because I am told now it is my time over the next 5 years to
Hmm.
take everything that I have and make it available to everybody. So anybody wants to be a coach, consultant, wants to figure out how do I work with clients? How do I even start? What are the different things that I could offer if I were to do a strategic facilitation? What do I do? How do I do it? If I want to take him through vision, mission statements, how do I do a one-page business plan? And everything I do is uncomplicated, simple, shortcuts. I don't have time, but I have experience.
The German strategy part, I apologize. I love that. I just liked how it sounded.
John just sitting here and going, oh my God, I just broke a sweat. It's so good.
I'm like, I really liked it. But I would have to think, by the way, that there's something about your ability to be able to step outside yourself, so to speak. And I don't know how else to phrase it, but you did. How long did it take you to get comfortable? You explained the process of the spiritual ceremony. And by the way, I had missed a step, which is not a step that you missed, but I mean that I'm thinking the people that are at your wedding, when you're saying it's a spiritual, I'm thinking bluntly, they're your pals. They're your pals that are, who am I inviting to my wedding? And you know what I mean? Well, we have to have so and so and so and so. I didn't realize that was also part of the deal here, in addition, that it really was a spiritual experience. So that's incredible to me. How long did you take to get comfortable with the idea of stepping outside of yourself?
So the first time somebody said to me, can I have your stuff? My initial response was absolutely not. It's my IP. How dare you?
Right.
And then the second time somebody asked me, I said, why does this keep coming up? Why does this keep coming up? And then I get this message, and then everything burns to the ground. Now, the only thing that did not burn, the only thing that did not burn was a box of workbooks that I had given to a friend, and my last words were to her, keep them safe because they're the only copies I have. That's the only thing that survived.
And they're still here.
And they're still here.
Wow.
So message, flagpole, that's in the eye of the beholder, but I think within that is a very strong message for me to say, how do I get comfortable with this? I made a very conscious choice, and this is maybe something important for your audience to hear too, especially for those that are a little older. And I say older, wiser, whatever you want to say, or
that experience, even
struggle with relevance and positioning and value propositions right now. Is I made a choice when I turned about 55, when I saw this coming, and I live in Los Angeles. So you can either go and try to be forever 21 and compete with all the young women. And there, believe me, in LA, there's a lot of that going on.
You see it all the time. There's enough reality shows, let alone real life, where you see
and it's painful. It's painful to watch.
Yeah.
Or you do your research and you say, well, who is out there that is doing this in a dignified, elegant, timeless, classy way?
Love the choice of words.
And I arrived at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I arrived at Maya Angelou. I arrived at Oprah. And it's there's not a lot of women out there that do this successfully.
Right.
And I looked at them and like, what do they do that I find appealing? And what they do is they're unapologetic. And they've connected with the next generation and the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. You will never hear Oprah say, oh my God, in the good old days or during my times, Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have never uttered that. She would just have said things like, well, over the decades that I've been doing this, there's a pattern and it keeps repeating itself. But the relevancy of wisdom comes with a connection to the next generation and the next generation and the curiosity, not of judgment, but the curiosity to say, what are you trying to do? And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to do the same thing that we did. go party, have a great time, find somebody to love,
Why not?
maybe have a
Yeah.
maybe have a family, be
Yeah.
successful, make the
Mm,
money, live a
right.
balanced life,
Yeah.
do something meaningful, live in
Mhm.
purpose. It's no different than what we did.
No, no,
So
I've had a blast so far. Grateful to say,
thank you.
and now it's like now what? And I that's why I think these conversations are so damn important. Especially you just put up three people that I would follow. One of them, two of them, I'm sorry, that have since passed. So it's you're reading what they did. I'm a Mel Robbins fan too. By the way,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm a crazy Mel Robbins fan. And I never think in regards to is she too old, too young, to this, to that. I just
doesn't even occur.
it never occurs. She's just
Yeah,
amazing. And
yes.
so that's the hope part. So for me, I guess the question two, for out of respect for your time, two questions for this moment, which would be simply this. Number one, which is for those that are at any age, if you're more experienced or younger or whatever, what are some of the things that you suggest that they could do on their own in addition to contact you? And we'll get to that part after. But that they could do on their own to tighten up their own game so that unless it is a ridiculously god awful circumstance that no one could call for that you're living through, that you don't get as easily blindsided, that you don't get as easily hurt. Is there some safeguard that they can take without sheltering themselves?
I think there's a I think the most important part is to really be honest with yourself.
Mm, hmm.
And it comes down to one basic belief system, and that is, do you
Okay.
believe it's a friendly universe or hostile environment?
Hmm.
And whatever you believe in, that is what it's going to be.
Okay.
I believe that it's a friendly universe. I
Hmm.
cannot fathom that at the end of this, that somebody's going to go, the joke's on me. I'm a good person. I've done really good things. I have an amazing network of friends. I can see the support that's coming at me. I know I'm in the right place, doing the right thing. This was not what I asked for, but I think the deliberate act of finding the gift.
Mm, mm,
If you've been laid off,
hmm.
yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Um, the deliberate act of finding the gift.
Thank you for repeating that.
Is it time
Mm-hmm.
for you? How many times have you said, I hate this job? How many times did you say, I only wished I could do my own thing? You've been gifted that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you said, oh my God, I just wished that I wouldn't be in this relationship because, I maybe I can finally, well, you've been gifted
Oh.
that opportunity.
Mm.
You lost everything,
Mm-hmm.
okay? What have you been gifted?
Mm.
When you lose everything, it's death without dying, and it is a reinvention of everything I wear has been given to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I
Mm.
don't even know if that's me,
Mm.
but it's a great experiment. Welcome to the gift of the great experiment of who am I? Who
Mm.
do I want to be? How do I want to show up? Is this me? Because I have no constraint.
Mhm. Is it too early to ask you in the process, uh, what would you like to do now?
Uh, I would love to shortcut the grief if I could,
Hmm.
because the grief is the grief is deep, it's dark, it's heavy,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it sits on your chest. I wished I could fast track that,
Hmm.
but I can't.
Hmm. Okay.
I am really trusting as much as I can and surrendering this process
Hmm.
because so far I feel like I've been in flow and people have given me things and we found this place
Right.
and things are moving forward and people are offering things and magically some money is flowing, the lease has been refunded
Hmm.
and they paid the rent back for most of January. So that keeps me afloat a little bit. Cars were burned. That went pretty quickly. So that money is being transferred. We already have the new car. So things are moving, and I have to really focus on what's next is to trust that what's happening is what's supposed to be next.
I got it. So I know that you have a killer website. And so obviously that link will be there. You're also a really strong social media person. So those links will be there. What would be the one thing that you would suggest in regards to, we need to know more about you, obviously. And the selfish question I will end with for the moment is, will you come back?
Yes.
Thank you. Because there's so much more that I want to know. There's so much more that I need to know in addition to the progress of the journey. But it's one of the more powerful conversations on this show that I've ever had. So I acknowledge you from the bottom of my heart. Strength, hope, experience, all factored in. And one of the best explanations of spirituality, and I say it selfishly, to help me. So thank you. Beate Chelette, I am profoundly grateful that you showed up for me today. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving your time, your experience. And is there anything you'd want to add that I left out that you would like to convey for the moment?
I think that the most important thing is that when people are experiencing hardships, it feels that we're so alone. I have realized probably the most important lesson in all of this, that giving is one part of the infinity loop. Receiving is the second. So do not take your teachings from your parents, the conditional love, the having to behave a certain way to get something. Do not take this into this next phase of your life, because the infinity loop of the giving and receiving is what creates the flow. And the flow creates the resonance creates the energy creates the success.
Wow. I'm so glad we had this conversation. One more time, Beate Chelette, thank you so much for showing up for me today.
Thank you so much, John, and I wish you and your audience the best.
Absolutely a blast. And folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep watching, liking, sharing, and we will keep driving content right through your front door. John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Thanks so much for checking us out. Have a great rest of the day, and we will talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.